Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back and thank you for joining me with my guest of tonight's show. It is Breaking Stereotypes with Zainab Zaim Sattar. And my guest tonight is Arif Varaji from Help the Homeless. Assalamu alaikum, Arif. It's good to have you, and it's good to finally be in the same room as you, because I've heard so much about you. I've seen you around and about, but never had the opportunity to speak with you. So before I actually go in and let you introduce yourself, I would just want to give a big shout out to the listeners and to our producers and everybody at the team at Ramadan FM. Thank you so much for helping out. Without you guys, this show would not be possible. Also to the listeners, please do remember that whilst my show is all about honesty and raising awareness, it is no means a way of offending people. So the things that we do touch upon tonight, it's all key issues that do need to be discussed, do need to have awareness, people do need to be educated, but again, please do not be offended. So Arif, on that note, please can you introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit about Help the Homeless?
So I'm Arif Varaji, founder of Help the Homeless. We're a registered charity in Leicester. The majority of work we do is around homelessness, preventing homelessness, and I guess solving homelessness. But we also give out emergency food parcels, deliver food parcels, give out plenty of men's clothing, so we recycle men's clothing, fresh underwear for people that are on the street, so anybody who's struggling. We also give out mobile phones to people to relieve social isolation. But again, I'll go into that later. It's not just iPhone 12
sure,
for people
of
and
course.
stuff. We also help people to get official photo ID, i.e. provisional licenses, work with HSBC as an agent to get people bank accounts who don't have ID or a fixed address, as well as providing lots of emotional support to make sure people maintain the tenancies and make a success of the opportunity that they get given by being placed into some suitable accommodation to kind of come into some kind of normality, get some kind of experience behind them and break, I guess, the chains that have kind of kept them maybe on the streets or maybe unable to, get a property or get a tenancy anywhere.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you so much for that. So there's a lot that you actually cover. It's not just one or two little items. In terms of my listeners, I mean, some of my listeners might be wondering, why am I having you on the show? My show is called Breaking Stereotypes, and it literally is what it says on the tin. Now, I've got a mindset. My particular mindset, I have a couple of principles, and sometimes I hate deviating away from my principles. But the reason why I invited you onto tonight's show is because of the fact that some people have certain stereotypes, and that's what my shows are all about, breaking those stereotypes. And the best example I can give is when I was little, growing up in a predominantly Gujarati community, close-knit, sometimes narrow-minded, heavily narrow-minded in the day and age I grew up in. Homelessness was one of those things that you just never talked about, especially because we came from a community where we all extended family members lived under the one roof. It was unheard of to have a family member or a distant relative or a friend that might be homeless. But this can happen to anybody. It can happen to me, it can happen to the next door person. It's not something that we ask for, it can happen. And that's the reason why I wanted to call you onto the show, so that we can break it down and we can talk about these stereotypes. So I want to go back to the very beginning. I want to know what made you start this initiative.
So I firmly believe it's a calling in life, definitely. And I'm blessed. So my team feel like that as well, but I genuinely feel blessed that I'm in a position to be able to make a difference in people's lives, alhamdulillah. And for me, ultimately, my end goal as a Muslim is if we set this charity up and the structure in a way where it's going to continue, unfortunately, the need is probably never going to dwindle away, because we've seen that obviously I'd happily close a charity if there was no need for it. But unfortunately, there is. So if I set it up in a way where it's going to continue once I pass away, then inshallah, my good deed count is going to keep ticking.
I mean,
that's the ultimate goal. Why I started was I took inspiration from a Facebook video of a friend in Bolton who was doing something similar. I'm from Bolton originally, in case you can't tell my accent. So, so when I seen the video, and I thought it's such a noble and easy thing to do, where he was giving out clothing to people on the streets there. So I went into my own wardrobe, got some of my own T-shirts, went on eBay, bidded on bulk lots of clothing, managed to win 14 pairs of jeans from somebody in Tamworth. And she met me near Hinckley, and she gave me the jeans, and I told her what it was for, and she gave me a discount on them as well. So that then led to me getting all the clothing and putting it into the boot of my car. And this is November 2014. And I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I just thought I'm going to go out and try and make a difference. Because when you see homeless people on the street, you see ripped clothing, wet clothing, especially in the winter, wet jackets, you think to yourself, well, if I can just give some clothing to someone, at least that's going to help them to get rid of the dirty clothing they're wearing. So went from the boot of my car, first person I saw on Granby Street, helped him out, and we had a Facebook group at the time with about 40 people on, just friends. Today, I think we've got over 18,000, majority Leicester locals on there. And that's just Facebook. Obviously, we've got Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, that kind of stuff as well. It kind of grew from that to then more donations coming in. Then it led to me and my wife sorting the donations out in the kitchen, getting rid of the stuff we couldn't use. That then led to me getting pull suitcases. And then instead of going from the boot of the car, we then used to walk up and down town centre once a week. Then takeaways got involved and started to give us portions of biryani and chickpeas this and chana chat this and whatever, and we'd then give food out to people as well. That then led to us going onto the market, where we joined up with another gent who used to assist me before, and he was concentrating more on the food side of things, and he left Leicester, so he passed it over to us, kind of thing. So on the markets, we'd gather every Wednesday evening. Initially, there's probably, 40, 50 people that used to come. Not all homeless, people that were struggling to make ends meet, people maybe who weren't able to cook or had no one to help them cook, or weren't able, have people that could cook for them. So we had a temple that was cooking fresh rice and dal every week for us. And that grew and grew and grew, and more support came, and Greg started to give us the leftover products when they used to close. So we had the Greg sandwiches, we had sandwiches from the Wild Bean Factory. Nando's used to give us chicken. We used to get food from a local pub where they used to cook us pasta and stuff like that. So we kind of had, I think at the peak, around 180 people a week that used to come. And that, again, not just homeless people, it's just anybody who needed a meal. So we'd never turn anybody away. If they felt they needed to come there to get food, then we'd happily serve them. And that kind of helped to get more support, it gained more traction. And fast forward now to the winter of 2018, it started snowing. Me and there's a core group of our volunteers, and they said, look, can we potentially raise money to kind of get people off the streets and into B&B? So we weren't a registered charity then. This was still just a group of people, just do-gooders, I guess, and doing what we could without any experience, just, building up momentum and just doing what we could in the community. So I put an appeal out on Facebook, and I said, look, we're going to be looking to put people into B&Bs. If you want to help fund this, then here's my PayPal details in my bank account. Feel free to donate. I thought we'd probably get about, 80 quid, 100 quid, 120 quid or something. Within 2 days, we had £2,500 in my personal account.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, okay, no problem. We need to register as a charity now. And in fairness, that's probably the best thing we ever did. So we registered as a charity in March 2018. That's when we got our charity status. But we started to accommodate people with the money we got. And we soon found out, once we accommodated them, we'd ask them the questions like, why are you in this position? You're entitled to this benefit, that benefit. Why aren't you claiming for this? And they're like, hey, some of them were clueless, literally didn't have a clue how to navigate the system, how to navigate the websites, how to navigate the forms, how to fill in the forms, how to understand what they were entitled to. And we just thought, this is solvable to an extent. So Corey and Vanessa, they're my integral team and co-founders of the charity as well. And they started to work intensely with the people that we started to get into their B&Bs, and we found suitable accommodation for the first gentleman that we put in there. It was in a shared house, a room in a shared house, and we worked out that his housing benefit would cover that. So he wouldn't actually be out of pocket. The housing benefit would cover his rent aspect. So at least he'd have a roof over his head. And we kind of, I guess not convinced, but spoke to the landlord, give him assurances that, not all the people that are homeless are like what you stereotypically think of, maybe, on the street, probably addiction problems, that kind of stuff, not showered, not clean, that, etc. So, we're going to provide intense support to this gent as well. We're here in case anything happens, take a chance. And we found out the landlord was, yeah, okay, fine. So that's how it started. First person we accommodated in January 2018. And to date, we've managed to find suitable accommodation for over 180 people. MashaAllah.
It just takes that one person, doesn't it? Absolutely. Now, you mentioned you're from Bolton. I don't know if you know, but I'm from Bolton. I'm a doubler. I'm from Double. Well, near Dean Road, Derby Street is where I'm from. Yeah.
That's where I'm from.
So there you go. So it's nice to be in the vicinity of another northerner. There you go. Now, we talked, so it's a relatively new charity. I mean, you started in 2014 and you got your charity status in 2018. So relatively new, but quite fast growing. We touched on, I actually do want to talk about the differences in people who are on the streets in terms of addiction. And that's one of my questions a bit later on. But before we go anywhere, I really want to narrow down the difference between a homeless person and a beggar. Beggar being the people on the streets who are physically begging. And the reason why I say this is our studio is based off Evington Road. I'm notoriously on the scene of Evington Road. I like to, come here to eat, whether I'm on my motorbike, whether I'm with my family, whether I'm in the car, it doesn't matter. I'm out and about on Evington Road, as well as other areas. And there are a lot of people who are physically begging on the streets, and they'll be unkempt, they'll be unclean, they'll have ripped blankets around them, they'll be shivering. For me, it's really hard to tell who actually is the homeless person and who is begging. And every now and then I'll put my hands in my pocket and I'll take some money out and I'll give it. And a few times I've been not caught, but seen by some of the shop owners on Evington Road. And I've actually been stopped by these people, and they've said, don't, because this person physically lives around the corner in this house and actually has a daytime job. Now that to me was a shock horror, because to me it was a case of, well, where then is my money going? I know it's only £1 here, £1 there, £5 here, £5 there. But that then led me to think, okay, where's this money going? But the next time they come in front of me, it's somebody else. How can I tell? So I want you to differentiate, if you can, the difference between the beggars and the difference between the homeless person. Is that something that you can?
No.
No? You're shaking your head?
No. We get duped even now.
Yeah.
And that's with the links that we have got now built up. So we work closely with the council, Leicester City Council. You're never going to know of face value unless you physically know the person and you know the name and the history and everything that we now have access to. Whether that person is genuinely accommodated or is there unfortunately begging for whatever reason that may be. Fortunately, usually it is because the money is going to go where you think it's going to go due to addiction issues, stroke alcohol, stroke drugs. And that's probably one of the main reasons why you'd find people on the streets. It is quite lucrative, as sad as it sounds. It's very lucrative. London, for example, you could make a career out of begging. I'm talking like a tax-free career, literally, out of begging, to the point where you're paying a mortgage and you probably got a car on finance with the money you get in London. We know from working on the streets with people that have been to London, there's people out there that they have outfits and uniforms that actually wear to go and beg on the street, and they have little stories to give to people and spin to people to get that money in. Same as in Leicester. If you dress in the right clothing and you give the right appearance, as you said, unkept, stroke, ripped blanket, stroke, ripped clothing, that is a uniform you'd wear, and you went in town centre with a cop, you still come out with, I don't know, £10-15 a day. But if you were to have a story, so, you get people, unfortunately, that even like hide a leg and pretend they've got one leg and stuff like that. You could, people are generous. Like you said, you yourself have given money out to people. £5 from you, £5 from that gent, £2 from there, £2 from there. That's added up to already 12, 13 quid. Now, you got to understand, unfortunately, the sad reality is some of the drugs that are available on the street are literally £5 for a bag, and that's you high for the next 4 hours. Gets you away from the reality of the situation you may be in, any issues you may be facing, but ultimately it's the hit if you are addicted. And again, it depends what you're taking. There's so many substances out there, but it literally is as cheap as £5 for a bag. Yeah,
it's quite a scary world out there, isn't there? So that's the difference. I mean, it is very difficult to tell it, and I guess you're never going to know, like you said. No. But what about the genuine homeless people? Now, let me clarify what I'm saying here. When I was growing up, when people were homeless, they were usually compared to begging, because a person who was homeless always needed either clothes, shoes, food, needed somewhere to stay. And if they were asking people on the street with a sign to say, I'm homeless, that in itself is begging. But homelessness can happen. Like I said, it can happen to me, it can happen to my next door neighbor. One day that we've got a full-time job, steady income. The next, our child is ill, we've got to take them for treatment. It could be anything, parents need to go to a care home, we don't have money, we have to sell our homes, our cars, things like that. It can happen to absolutely anybody. So these people that you come across who are in genuine need, who are homeless, who are struggling, I want you to tell me, or if you can answer this question, if they could help themselves, do you think they'd be in this position? I know what the answer is. I need you to clarify.
Everybody's situation is different. Some yes, some no. Some need that helping hand. And some, once they're given that helping hand and they're given that springboard, thrive. Literally take the opportunity with both hands and thrive and come back into, I guess, normality or normal society. So every situation is different. But what you're saying about, you only ever one paycheck away from being homeless, that's genuinely true, because some of the people that we come across and the stories they tell us, 10 months ago, I had a 30 grand car outside my house. 10 months ago, I had a £240,000 house, but it's gone because of whatever reason, relationship breakdown, or was it on my name or whatever. There's so many different reasons. But then you've also got the other situation of how do you define homelessness? Typically it'd be a homeless person is someone who's on the street, but that's just, the tip of the iceberg. You've got people that are living in hostels. Technically they're homeless because they're living in a hostel. It's not a permanent accommodation and it's not theirs. They've not got a tenancy to be in there. They've probably got a license for whatever months it is, but if that expires and it's not renewed kind of thing, then where did they go? So they're homeless. You've got people living on the uncle's sofa, auntie's sofa, brother's sofa, sister's sofa, friend's sofa. Technically they're homeless. Yes, they've got a roof over their head, they've got a shelter, but they're still homeless because the minute that person says, right, I've had enough, you've been here 6 months, go on, get out, you're not sorting yourself out, what did they do? Someone who's gone into prison, for example, and was living with a mum or something prior to going in, or the father, and they've gone in, and mum and dad may have a new boyfriend, girlfriend, stroke, husband, wife, whatever, decide to move away to, Cornwall or London, and the house they've given the rent up, and you've been inside for 2 years, you've come out, where do you go to? Again, that's a homeless person because they've got no fixed abode when they're being released. So you've got all these different definitions. So everybody's situation is different, and some, yes, can be helped, some can help themselves, and as you get deeper into it, it's literally like opening a can of worms because there's so many different avenues, so many different reasons for homelessness and so many different solutions, I guess, that there's no one fixed solution for any one person. It literally is everyone has we have an individualized approach to each person based on what they want. And that's kind of how we move forward. Now, I can only speak for Leicester because obviously we're based in Leicester. Other cities are probably a lot bigger, like London, Birmingham, Manchester, for example, and the facilities may be different there. But for Leicester, to be honest, for genuine homeless people, the services here are second to none. And I genuinely mean that, because there's no reason why, if you're in Leicester and you're homeless, that you need to go without a shower in the morning, go without breakfast in the morning, go without food during the day. There's no reason why your clothes should be dirty, because there's enough charities that will give you clothing, or you can even get your clothing washed. Yeah, so the facilities we have in Leicester are good. They might not be the best. They might not be, it's not going to be 5-star hotel, etc., etc. But there's no reason why you should be sleeping out. Now, the people you see sleeping out on the streets, from what we know, it could be anything between, from the figures that we kind of know about, it could be anything between, I'd say, about 10 to 20 people roughly per night. Some of them are there because they choose to be, literally do not want to be inside. Some because they're on withdrawal of service for whatever issues they may have caused in wherever it is with the council or wherever they've been. You get several chances. Obviously, there's only so much that services can take, and depending on abusive behaviour, etc., the ties get severed for X amount of months until you're allowed to come back in. Then you've got people that maybe just moving through the city. Maybe they're moving from London and they're making their way up to Glasgow, for example, but Leicester suddenly seems to be a stop where they may spend 3 nights here or a week until they get enough money to move on. We get people like that coming through as well. So it's tricky, but like I said, because we work so closely with the council, as soon as we find somebody, we say, look, are you genuinely homeless, or have you got somewhere to stay or not? They'll usually tell us straight away when they find out we're from the charity, because we've got our badges and we've got our logos and stuff. No, I'm all right, mate, I'm accommodating, I'm just out begging kind of thing. But the ones that are genuinely homeless, yeah, I'm rough sleeping, we start asking the questions. Okay, can we have your name? Can we have your date of birth? Are you right for us to try and help you? Do you want help? Do you want somewhere to stay? And then from there, we then phone up the Dawn Centre, for example, give the name, give the date of birth, and they then give us movements forward, how we can assist. So they may say, yes, send them down, we've got a bed for them here, or send them wherever, or get them into a place and we'll sort it out later, kind of thing. And then based on that, we then liaise with them, and then obviously we can work out an individual plan for that person, depending on if there's, for example, a local connection or there's not, on whether they can go down the route of being assisted by the council or down a private rental route, whatever. It just depends. Every case is individual.
Yeah, that sounds a bit like my law. So when we get clients come to us with a particular case and they want success rates, we can't give them success rates because each case is individually based on its own merits. It's really difficult, and everyone's circumstances, they're their own individual set circumstances. Now, we touched on Leicester. Leicester is very, very diverse, and it's not just mosques and charities. You've got gurudwaras, there's loads of, shall we say, places of worship that also give regular food and do their charity work and everything, and we've touched on that. One of the questions that I want to know is, it's not just home-based, homeless people like, Leicester-born, UK-born, Bolton-born, London-born. What about the refugees? I mean, you are a charity and you'll be open to everybody. What about the refugee issue in terms of homelessness? I mean, you've seen what's happening with Afghanistan. There's been an influx. How has that hindered your services? And the reason why I'm asking that is because I was involved in a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and it was one of those, stereotypical type of conversations where, they're coming into our country and they're taking our food and they're taking theirs. And now, I used to have a factory, your typical Asian manufacturing factory. Now, people have their own stereotypes about a factory, but I'm so sorry, but that was my bread and butter. Not once did we do anything wrong. That was our genuine halal rozi, right? That was my halal income. Alhamdulillah, it got me to where I am. But when I hear the words, they're coming here and taking my jobs, not one British-born based person was willing to work behind that sewing machine or in the packing department. And the amount of people we took from the job centre, it was phenomenal. And they were all immigrants because they were willing to put that hard work in. People I would speak to that were British born or were, had been here for a very long time and had moved themselves up in the world, turned their nose down at working at the factory. It's an income. It's halal rozi. Why would you turn your nose down? And that's the reason why I'm asking that. You are a charity. You are here for everybody. The fact that we've had refugees and you might have had to help those refugees, has that hindered your service at all?
I wouldn't say hindered. So with regards to the refugees that come from Afghanistan, there's charities out there and groups out there, and obviously you've got the government as well, that are kind of making sure they don't kind of slip through the net. There's facilities there for them. They're kind of prepared, I guess. But obviously you've got other kind of refugees as well. So the refugees from different places, once they have their right to remain sorted, they then ultimately got, I think, 10 days or 2 weeks to kind of come out of the accommodation that's been provided by the government. They're the ones that I guess would need help with accommodation, but that's not something we specialise in. There's Red Cross, there's like One Roof, for example. That's more their specialist field. We're more based on people that I guess got access to government funding, and that kind of stuff. But if anyone turns up at our doorstep for the food bank, for example, we won't say no to them.
Yeah.
Let them take 6 essential items once a week. So that, I mean, in itself is costing us as a charity £20,000 a year to keep simple things as sugar, tea, coffee, cereal, pasta, baked beans, and that kind of stuff. You imagine £20,000 shows how much is being used. So, and that again is open for everybody. If you feel like you need to come down, then you're more than welcome to come down. So we'd never turn people away. Again, with regards to clothing, so other groups that have been helping out the refugees, for example, have said, Arif, have you got any socks for men? Or have you got any clothing for men? Or have you got anything for ladies? So we got donated about, I think, 20,000 pairs of socks. So we give them a whole box.
Yeah.
Said, take it, send it to Melton, basically, because that's where they're based in the hotel. So they were taken, for example. So I think the issue with regards to some of the immigrants that we that come to us for assistance is the language barrier. So the ones that can't speak, for example, English or even a bit of English, the ones that can speak Urdu, the ones that can speak Hindi, I can speak to Gujarati, for example. So Urdu and Hindi is not a problem for me. I can do that. But obviously you get some of the African languages, Eritrea, Ethiopia, you get some of the Eastern European languages. If you can get an interpreter, then obviously we can then assist, but sometimes we even struggle to get interpreters. So that's probably our biggest barrier, is the language barrier. We've actually got one guy that uses Google Translate to communicate with us, and we actually got him a bank account opened up. So it's, I guess, adapting to the need of the person that comes, but you've got to kind of have that network to assist. So translation services is something that's very much needed. But with regards to what you're saying, like I said, we'd never turn anybody away for the things that we can actually help with. If we can't help with it, we can't help with it. You know, we don't dress it down or dress it up. We do what we can, and what we can't do, we don't do. Simple as
Well, it's safe to say that there's enough charities to go around. Of course, every charity do struggle because they need that donation, they need that upkeep. But it's safe to say. So there shouldn't really be anyone saying, oh, these refugees are coming over and taking over what belongs to us. No. They shouldn't be. But unfortunately, we hear it. We do often hear it.
That is the stereotype, as you said. Like you said, for example, you yourself said, you know, people that were, I guess, British born or been here for a while, turn their nose down at it. Yeah. It's same with the farming jobs in Lincolnshire. You know, you get all these Eastern European people that are being employed for this reason, because they're grafters, they work hard, Absolutely. They're willing to put the effort in because they get the remuneration for it. And I guess that's how our parents were when they first came in the 60s and 70s. They put a graft in. And obviously because of their efforts, we are kind of where we are now, and it'll be a chain, like, because of our efforts. Then our kids will have it easier as well. But you can't take away from the fact that hard work pays off, and that's the honest truth.
Absolutely.
You know, you've got to put a graft in. You can't expect things to land on a plate.
Well, that's why I'm notorious in saying that to my kids, that I'm so sorry, my money's mine. I know that sounds harsh, and, you know, inshallah, I do intend to leave my children something, but I'm not teaching them that I'm leaving them something. They need to learn that they've got to feed their own stomachs and that they've got to work hard. Now, a lot of people who know my background, they know, for me, I do believe university is a bit too highly overrated. And the reason why I say that is because of the life that I've led. I mean, I don't have an undergraduate's degree, and yet I'm a lawyer. I got my postgrad law degree when I was well into my late 20s. And my children, I'd already had my 4 kids by then, and then I went to university to get my postgrad law, because certain careers you do need a degree, whereas there are certain careers where you don't need a degree. And nowadays people have the apprenticeship route, which wasn't really around when I was, up and coming. So one of the things I love to teach my kids, and I constantly say this to them, is that my money's mine. My car's mine, my motorbike's mine, my house is mine, my clothing's mine. I mean, I do pick on my daughter, and I say to her that when I buy all my, handbags that I like to buy, that they're eventually going to be hers. And I turned around and said, you can't sell it because they're mine. And she'd be like, but I can make this much money. I said, I don't care. You want to make that much money? You go find yourself a career where you can earn that hard-earned money. But my stuff, you keep for life. It's one of those things. But at the same time, I'm also trying to teach them the manners, the discipline, help out as much as you can. Which now brings me neatly on to the next question that I wanted to ask. One of the most notorious sentences I've heard is, I can't help because I have no money. For a couple of years ago, I did the fastest zip wire in the world in Wales, for a charity that we were raising money for, Alex's Wish, which was Duchenne, muscular Duchenne, for Leicestershire Law Society, because I'm the main committee. And I honestly felt like when I was trying to raise funds, I really felt like I was begging people to help support me do this zip wire just so that I could raise funds for a noble charity cause. And I must have put it up on Facebook once or twice, shared it out as much as I could to my WhatsApp. And alhamdulillah, a lot of people donated, and I raised a lot more than I thought I would raise. I truly felt like I was begging, and I got a lot of people saying, unfortunately, I don't have the money right now. And it's absolutely fine. You don't have it. There's times where I end up donating so much, the zakat, and there's lots of different charities, that I'm at the end of my tether at the end of the month and I can't help someone. So if someone says to me today, I want to help, but I can't help because I've got no money, what else can they do to help your charity, other charities? What can they do that will help you?
Use your brain. Think of different ways you can help. So you can potentially raise funds with a group of you, between family members, between workplaces. So, for example, for us, if someone suddenly said to me they're working in maybe a call center where there's, I don't know, 200 people in there, right? I'm going to go out and I'm going to speak to everyone and try and get one piece of men's clothing from them or two pieces from men's clothing that they don't wear anymore, and we'll donate them to you. I'd take them. I'd happily take them because I said we churn through men's clothing. For example, okay, so what we're going to do is maybe we've got, I don't know, 50 employees, but I'm going to tell everyone for the next 4 weeks, can you please bring in a can of this or a packet of this or a bottle of this? And once we get all this, can you guys come and pick it up and use it for your food bag? Of course we can. There's that. Then you've got people who've got skill sets. I don't know, accountants, for example, lawyers, whatever. So we'll give you our service for free kind of thing. So I can't donate any money to you, but use my skill set. That's a donation as well. And ultimately, what you've got to remember is helping people it's in the human nature for the majority of people anyway. And the reward you get, not even religiously, you might not have a religious affiliation, but the reward you get, people believe in good karma, that kind of stuff, is the feeling you get, the warm fuzzy feeling is kind of what spurs us on to keep doing it more. And also with regards to the future, you've got to understand that whatever you do, whatever actions that you partake in, your children and youngsters see that, which is very important because technically they are our future. Now, if you bring up your kids and if you bring up the children to kind of see that it's, you've got to be charitable, you've got to help those that are less fortunate than you, ultimately they're the ones that are going to take over the work once, people like myself and kind of once we're gone, they're the ones that are going to kind of pick up the pieces. So I that's what I teach my kids. And they see everything Dad does as well. And I go into schools and try and positively influence children at schools. I'm going on Friday to Leicester Girls' School on London Road. And that's a primary school, so they're quite young, but I speak to young children and the secondary school as well. So it's very important that it's not just about money. Yes, money is very important, especially for charities, because sometimes they've only got literally like a year's funding there and they're worried about where they're going to get next year's funding. But you know what? What we found is we've got no hidden agendas, we've got no ulterior motives, and help for us, Qudrati, just comes from up there, literally. Honestly, one week we were like worried, like, oh, the account's going down. And out of the blue, you'll get like Marks and Spencer saying, oh, we've got another £10,000 for you. I'm like, oh, wow, wicked. Someone else will come along and say, yeah, we've done some fundraising, we've got, X amount for you, that kind of stuff. So it's that age-old saying, isn't it? Charity starts from home. And you did mention that you don't have to have a religious affiliation, but I mean, us being Muslims, us being religious, Islam, it says, charity starts from home, and this is where zakat comes in. But it's not just zakat; it's every whatever you can, you donate. But it's whether you've got religious affiliation or not. Like you said, helping is human nature, is compassion and good karma. And I was in a session this afternoon at DMU University. So shout out to any of the DMUners who are listening into tonight's show, because some of them then did make a note of the show for tonight. We were talking about good karma. I'm a big, big believer of what comes around goes around. Now, whether Islam says it or not, I don't know. I'm not a scholar. I don't know whether Islam says there's good karma or not. But I personally am a big believer that if we do good will automatically come to us. And I don't ever want to be in a position where my children need assistance and they don't get that assistance because of something I did or didn't do. So for me, what you've said, what you've touched upon is huge. So to all the listeners out there, you are listening into Breaking Stereotypes with Zainab Zaim Sattar. We have Arif Varaji from Help the Homeless Leicester, a relatively new charity, but have been around and growing quite fast since 2014. We have about 16 minutes left, and I do have a couple of more questions, so I'm going to crack on with that. In terms of awards, now, I know, every charity is not in it for that award. I'm going to set up a charity so I can get X amount of award or recognition, but sometimes it's nice. It's nice to be recognized. It's nice to have that accolade because it just shows you what you are doing. Because as a lawyer, some people view a solicitor as an elite profession, and some actually turn their nose down at us. And I get mixed, opinions, mixed emotions. But although we are a business, we are still there to help people, but we still have to make money from people, because otherwise how our boss is going to pay our salaries and so on and so forth. And I
don't often get to see the seeds become fruitful. So if I've helped someone, I've helped them, off they go, they say bye, they leave me a good review, I never see them again. I don't know what the next steps are. I don't know how they've moved on in life. I don't get to see it. The only time I get to see it is if they've left me a review and constantly keep in touch. So I was recently nominated, shortlisted for an award. I didn't win, unfortunately, but the person who won, you know, absolutely fantastic winner. But for you to have that recognition, now I'm not going to ask the standard question, how do you feel? I'm not going to ask that question. But what I do want to know is, I've lost where I was now. There we go. What does the winning awards actually mean for the organization as a whole? What does it get you?
That's brilliant. So what you just tapped on there, yeah, as on a personal level, I'm like proud to start from the boot of a car to where we are now. Massive. But anyone that knows me personally will know that I'm not big-headed. I'm down to earth. And you know what? Awards, yeah, it's great. I'm the face of it. Without the team behind me, I wouldn't be where I am. The charity would be where it is. But as a charity, the awards, it basically gives us gravitas. You can go in front of someone and ask for funding, and you know what you're talking about, and you can actually say, this is the impact that your donation is going to have. This is how many people are going to be helped. And not just that, the work we do is recognised by, I don't know, for example, Leicestershire Live and the office of the PCC. So 2020, I was the hero of Leicestershire.
Yeah.
For 2020, I think the awards was about 3 weeks ago. So there's new people are now got the status now. So, but there's that. And there's other awards that we won along the way. I can't remember. There's been that many different ceremonies, but I can't. They've got,
Alhamdulillah.
But yeah, the certificates are all there in the office as well. But yeah, you know, business awards, that kind of stuff. But even like on a personal level. So yeah, I was in that book, for example,
which we're going to touch upon. Yeah,
Captain Tom Moore. So that's for people that don't remember, is a gentleman who walked up and down his driveway raising the money for the NHS, and in the end, I think it 38.9 million pound in the end. So I was he compiled a book with his daughter before he passed away. It's called 100 Reasons for Hope, and he's put me in as one of them reasons. And I was invited down to the house for the book launch, that kind of stuff. And, you know, it's all that, again, it just gives us gravitas. People take you seriously. You know, when you've got some kind of like accreditation behind you and you've got the, you know, awards and that kind of stuff, people know you're not messing about.
You're serious.
You're serious.
And you're actually doing something.
You're doing something that's making a positive difference. You're doing it efficiently.
And the money's not going in your pocket, because a lot of people don't actually donate because they don't know where the money's going. But at the same time, they don't want to be proactive and look at the charity's books or look at what kind of donations that they're giving out. Now, I'm sitting here literally nodding to everything that you've said, because one, and this is a completely different scenario, but when I was a trainee solicitor, within 2 weeks of me being a trainee, I was promoted to what's known as a practice manager. Now, for those who don't know what practice manager is, it's a bit like being a manager of the whole company. Now, for law, you have to have a practicing manager that's been in law for X amount of years, and one has to be a solicitor as well, but you don't always have to. Now, as soon as people on LinkedIn found out that I've been promoted, I had a lot of hate. Because A, I was a trainee, and B, I hadn't been in law long enough. And a lot of people actually threatened to report me, you know, speech marks, to the SRA, which is the Solicitors Regulation Authority. What they didn't know was that we'd already spoken to the SRA, to the ethics line, to clarify whether me as a trainee can be a practice manager. Now, the reason why I was a practice manager was for the business networking side of it, because I'd only been on the job for 2 weeks, and I do a lot of networking, and I can read a room, and I can work a room as well, and I love to talk. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but I love to talk. So when I go around a room, some people, unfortunately, don't want to talk to me because they think I'm bottom of the food chain. So my boss had this brilliant idea of promoting me to practice manager, so that on my business card, it says practice manager, and therefore they will deal with me because I was the one leading everything anyway. So this way it gives that gravitas. So when I handed my card over, they look at him like, oh, so we can talk to you. You know, but what they didn't realize was whether I was practice manager or not, the connections I actually had, it would have got them somewhere anyway, but they chose to focus on that title.
Well, that is the sad reality of the world we live in.
Unfortunately, it is. But it's up to us to actually do something about it. Now, you mentioned, you literally went and answered a couple of questions that I've had, but I want to touch upon it again. Now, you were recently published in Sir Captain Tom Moore's publication. I can't remember the title. It was called
100 Reasons.
100 Reasons for Hope. So what I want to know is how did you come about being in that book?
So, again, it's down to the Hero of Leicestershire 2020 awards that I was given by the Office of the Police Crime Commissioner and Leicestershire Live. So the work that we did during the pandemic, so when lockdown first started, prior to that we had the market meal, as I mentioned earlier. That stopped, no gatherings allowed. So we then decided to mobilise and give out food parcels to people, anybody who was self-isolating, anybody who was struggling, people who were struggling to get the basic essentials by, supermarkets were like kind of running out of stuff, baby milk, nappies, toilet paper, that kind of stuff. We were putting in orders of 2.5, 3K a week at Aldi. And they were basically getting that on pallets, and we were packing that and delivering to people's doorsteps, as well as working with another local charity, MLSS, who were providing hot, fresh meals. We were delivering hot meals in the evening as well. So that work led to me obviously getting the award, because I'm the face of the charity, even though everyone was helping out in the background as well. Hero of Leicestershire 2020, which probably, I'm assuming that Captain Tom or his daughter and the research team probably did a search on Google Heroes of COVID, and that's come up. And they've asked, would you like to be featured in the story and in the book? And I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem.
MashaAllah. Did you get a chance to meet him before he sadly passed away?
Unfortunately not. But I met his family when I went down to the book launch. Lovely people. They want to come down to Leicester and see the charity. Because there's a lot of people in the book. Obviously, there's 100 reasons. 100 people in 100 reasons. Some are like dancing bin men, there's 6, 7 of them. But they were saying out of the majority of people in there, you kind of got the history where you've been doing the work, and this has just been a progression of the work you do, and it's been added on to what you already do. Yeah. So we'd love to come and see the charity and see how we can help and support. And we love curry. That's a big time. So come down and we'll talk, and we'll take you out, and let's see what we can do. So
again, that's recognition, because you are Muslim. I don't know if you're Gujarati, Bengali, but Gujarati. So we're in that society where, unfortunately, we're from the BAME background, aren't we? And BAMErs don't actually have access to a lot of things that non-BAMErs would. So mixing in with Caucasians and other ethnicities and races, unfortunately, it does give you that access, that recognition, opens the doors. It's like when you say, when you get that one foot in the door, it opens the access. So alhamdulillah, you've done really, really well. And that was another one of the reasons why I wanted you on my show, because we are BAME background. We are Gujaratis. We are a close-knit, or what used to be a very close-knit community that don't often talk about things. We are notoriously known for brushing things under the carpet. And for you and your team to be able to do such noble work, to get that recognition, and then hopefully one day be on that global platform, if you're not already, but be on that international platform, and to be able to reach out to more people and to help them. Moving on, we've got literally about 7 minutes left, so I quickly want to touch upon this. There are those homeless people out there. I mean, homeless people might not have the means to listen to us today. Let's say they were, and you are now armed with the knowledge that you have. Let's say they were very recently in this position, or they find themselves about to be in this position. What would you say to them right now?
So the first protocol would be report it to the council. Let them know you're homeless. Let them know where you are. The housing options need to know. You need to fill in a homeless declaration, and let's see what they say first. If you're found sleeping rough, so we work with the council where they go out on outreach in the mornings, and we go out in the evenings, and on Saturday we do mornings, and Friday we have off. So 6 days a week, we've got our own team that goes out to look for people that are rough sleeping, and assist them based on obviously the situation and the needs, etc. If you're found genuinely rough sleeping, there's help out there. You will get the help. So first protocol, like I said, council, report the fact that you're homeless. And then obviously liaise with us, come down to our offices or go to the council office and see what they say. Yes, there's a massive waiting list for accommodation. I'm not saying you're going to get accommodated in the perfect place straight away, but there's a system in place. And you've got to understand there's about 5,000 people waiting on a housing register in Leicester. That's families, that's single people, that's, single parents with kids, that kind of stuff. There's a vast array of people, but based on your circumstance, your need, and the urgency, you're banded into categories. Some do take 2-3 years to get there, but eventually you do get there. But I think come to a charity like us or any of the other charities that deal with this issue and speak to us properly, so we can advise you best and try and progress your case forward, and assist, so you're not kind of just stuck in limbo kind of thing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, yeah.
If you don't ask, you don't get, isn't it?
You have to. Sometimes you've got to be proactive in life.
You need that support system, absolutely. 100%. I mean, one of the other things I really did quickly want to say is a lot of people might be feeling shamed, ashamed of being homeless, ashamed of being in that position. And I was speaking with a uni student today, and she was talking about language being a barrier. And she was feeling shameful because her language was a barrier. And there was quite a few of us who turned around and said, absolutely not. You are a person who speaks 3, 4, 5 different languages. That should be looked upon in proudness as opposed to looked down upon. But for those of you who are out there, whether you're homeless or not, on the verge of being homeless or not, whether you know someone who's homeless or about to be on the homeless spectrum, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It can happen to anybody. But you need that support system in place. And I know, Arif, you would agree with that. Without you reaching out, without you asking for assistance, no one's going to come down knocking on, they're not going to hand it to you. Like Arif said, there are systems in place. And 5,000 people is a phenomenal amount. But
that's
given...
a city of 350,000 people.
Exactly. That's a phenomenal amount. I must be really, really, really naive and living in a bubble. I did not realize that those numbers were that high, Arif. I thought, okay, maybe 1,000 or 2, but 5,000. Very quickly, I wrote this question down, and I hope it comes across in the way I intend, for all intents and purposes, it comes across. What about the wealthy and the healthy? How can they help? To me, it's not just their responsibility, even though they're probably in a better position than, say, the average Joe. To me, it's everybody's responsibility, because you just never know when you will be in that position. What do you say to that?
I think, like you said, not just the healthy and wealthy, but anybody. If you are in a position to help, I think research where your money's going. Don't just give blindly.
Yeah.
Research where your money's going to be utilized, what impact your money will have, what projects maybe the charity are actually doing, and do you feel aligned to that? And the ethics and the morals of the charities, that's something that you feel like, I can really get behind that. So I'd always say, look, me, for example, I'll happily go and speak to anybody. I can sell the charity all day long because I know I've lived and breathed and slept the charity kind of thing. So this is like my baby or our baby for the team kind of thing. But obviously you get some charities that are massive and, they're probably employees of the charity. That's, the head CEO is probably in London or wherever it is. That's different. But that's why we always actively say to people that, we encourage locals to back local. Charity starts at home. We're here making a difference on your doorstep. Speak to me. I'll come into your office. I'll come into your workplace of work. I'll come into your school. I'll come into your college. I can tell you exactly what we do, where our money goes. And not just that, go on Charities Commission. Our accounts are there for everyone to see in black and white anyway. We've got nothing to hide kind of thing. So we kind of, I'd say to people, like, if you find a charity that you want to support, do a bit of research. Don't just give blindly. And then if you feel aligned to that charity's, ethos, then, back it as much as you can. Money for a charity is the lifeline, literally. As cliche as it sounds. Without the funding there, you can't do the things. As I said to you, look, £20,000 goes on the food bank. The mobile phones we give out, yes, they might be cheap, £12, £13 phones, but once you top it up twice, with the minutes and stuff that people need to be in touch with a GP, in touch with a probation service, in touch with whoever kind of thing, that's £25 per phone. We give out 250 of them last year. So that's
now I'm not good at maths, but I take it that's
$7,500. I think, roughly.
I'm terrible at maths. I'm a good lawyer. Horrible at maths.
Already there, I've just given you £27,500 we spent. If you find somebody on the street, you help them into accommodation. So initially put them into a B&B, for example, while you work out a solution to their problems. Then you pay a deposit. Then you get a starter pack once they move into a property. That's like £150. So already you're spending £1,000 to £1,500 per person that you accommodate.
But like you said, you've got an audit trail, because at the end of the day, you are a charity. You've got the higher ups to answer to, because you do get that funding and you do do get that recognition. So for those of you who are sitting on the fence, for those of you who are unsure as to which charity to help, whether it's Help the Homeless or whether it's another charity, just remember the stereotypes that we've talked about. Just remember, it's not about brushing it under the carpet anymore. We all need to be educated. It's all about awareness. If you see it, report it. If you know somebody on the verge of it, talk to them, see if you can get them some help. You don't have to donate by giving away your money, your hard-earned money. You could donate by, like Arif said, providing services if you're in the means to do so, or donating a piece of clothing, or fundraising. There are a huge number of ways that everybody can help. Also, the biggest one, keep everyone in your du'as. Prayers. Keep everyone in your prayers, because you just never know when you need it. So we have about a couple of seconds left. I'm now going to start saying bye. Allah Hafiz, thank you so much for tuning in to Break Your Step.